Hello, my friends. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, your astrologer, Maria Di Simone. And in today's video, we are going to explore a very interesting nugget in secondary progressions. I'm going to talk to you about your secondary progressed Mercury placement and how powerful it is when it changes direction in your lifetime, because Mercury is the planet that will absolutely change direction by secondary progression. Whether you were born with Mercury direct or Mercury retrograde, at some point in your secondary progress chart, it's going to change and it's going to stay that way for a certain amount of years. This is so fascinating to track, and I'm going to teach you how to do it. And we're going to go through a little real life astrology example. I'll pull up my chart and tell you about some of my experiences with my own progressed Mercury. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. The secondary progressed chart is one of the more fascinating tools in astrology, not only for predictive purposes, but to track your soul's evolution, because secondary progressions, it really is based on your birth chart. But your birth chart moved forward in time, and it symbolizes your soul's readiness to experience something in your life. So tracking your secondary progressions is extremely valuable. Now, I am very excited to tell you that right now registration is open for my secondary progressions class. This class will begin the end of May, May 31st, and right now, registration is open. The early bird registration rate does save you $55 off of tuition. And I just wanted to take a minute to show you to explain to you what I am offering in this class so that you can really appreciate how much you're going to learn about the secondary progressed chart. So I just am bringing up my website really quickly to give you the details of the class and the registration dates. So you can see, you can go to insightfulastrology.com to claim your spot. The class is from May 31st to June 28th. The calendar is here, and all classes are recorded and sent to you. So if you can't attend live, do not worry. And in this class, you are going to learn all of the ins and outs of secondary progressions. So I'm going to read to you my class outline so that you really can see what you're going to be learning. You are going to learn what are secondary progressions, how are they different from transits, the benefit of using both in your predictive astrology toolkit. I'm going to teach you how to find progressions in an ephemeris. I'm going to talk about orbs in progressions, the progressed angles in a horoscope, the progressed sun, Mercury, Venus, and the role of the outer planets in the progressed horoscope. That's all in lesson 1, guys. In lesson 2, we are going to take a very deep dive into the progressed moon, and we are going to talk about the progressed lunation cycle. I'm going to teach you how to understand this for yourself and anybody else. And it really does divide your life up into important chapters. And we are going to practice with some student event charts in this class. So you guys will send me an event. If you're already enrolled in my transits class, I have the events, but if you're going to be new, I'll send you an email. You will send me a real life event of a date in your past, and we're going to study your transits and progressions and the relevant active progressions in particular that were happening at that time to help you understand how to make predictions moving forward. Then in lesson 3, I will teach you how to organize and prepare a time search or a hit list. Same thing for secondary progressions and transits connected together. I'm going to show you how to I'm going to practice preparing a time search with transits and progressions, as well as with secondary progressions by itself. As far as I know, no other astrologer teaches you this, guys. I think I might be the only astrology teacher, the only astrology school out there who really teaches you how to organize and judge measurements and prepare them for your own purposes and for client work. And you do need astrology software to do this. You can get any astrology software program. Obviously, I recommend either WinStar professional astrology software or SolarFire. I have both of those programs. I have discounted coupon codes you can use to buy either one of those programs. And so the links are in the description box below. And then in lesson 3, we finish up with more chart practice. And finally, in lesson 4, more practice with student event charts. A live progressions final exam with a student client is happening. And I'm going to help you tighten your timing technique, and we're going to address delivery of information in the consultation. So all of that is happening in my secondary progressions class. Now, if you want to register for this class, you have to already know how to work with transits. It is essential that you are at the level of studying predictive astrology, because this is going to really become a powerful tool for you to use. Now, with secondary progressed Mercury, onto the video. Let's talk about it. And please go to insightfulastrology.com to get your spot in that class. It's the only progressions class I'm teaching in 2025. I am going to bring up my birth chart, and I am going to basically show you what happened in my life and what is happening, the continuous evolution of my experiences now that my secondary progressed Mercury has turned retrograde. So if you were born with secondary progressed, with your natal Mercury, rather, direct in your birth chart, then at some point in your life, it is going to turn retrograde by progression, and it is going to stay retrograde for a good 24 plus years. So 24 years and change before it then turns direct again by progression. So for some of you, your progressed Mercury may turn retrograde and then just stay there for the rest of your life. For others, it will turn direct in your lifetime as well. And if you were born with Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, then you want to look and see when by progression Mercury goes direct, because that will happen. And when Mercury stations direct by progression in your birth chart, it will stay direct for the rest of your life. This is important to track, and it is not a cookie cutter size thing for everybody. It's not like that happens to everybody at age 10 or age 22. It depends on your birth chart. This is very personalized information. So we cannot give you this cookie cutter answer, and you have to look at this yourself in astrology software or ask your astrologer to do it for you in the context of a consultation. So now what I'm going to do is share my birth chart. And in my videos now, as you know, I'm using SolarFire software as much as possible. You can get 15% off of this software. Go to alabe.com, enter Insight Astro 15, that coupon code at checkout, and it is a really inexpensive software program with that discount. So I highly recommend you get it if you're an astrology student. So this is my birth chart, and we're going to talk about Mercury specifically. Mercury, as you may know, is the significator of communication, the mind. Mercury is connected to contracts, communications. It is commerce. It is travel. Mercury rules young people, it rules siblings. Okay, so Mercury has a lot of significations in our life. And Mercury will, by progression, usually move through about 4 signs in a full long life. And that is even with Mercury going retrograde or direct by progression. So you can see I have Mercury natally in Taurus at about 21 degrees and change. By progression, Mercury has already finished going through Taurus in my life. Mercury has completely traveled by progression through the sign of Gemini and got to Cancer. And then something really interesting happened in my chart, and this is specific to my chart. When my progressed Mercury reached this degree, which happens to be the degree of my 4th house cusp. So Mercury, when it was about 13 degrees and actually 39 minutes of Cancer, it went retrograde in my birth chart. And this happened on December 2nd, 2014. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that the year or so after your progressed Mercury stations direct or retrograde, you want to track in your astrology journal what is happening in your life related to Mercury ruled matters and whatever Mercury is touching in your birth chart by progression. So you can see that for me, progressed Mercury, and I'm just going to draw Mercury here. I'm not going to bother putting up a bi-wheel and go through all that because it's going to take me forever. So progressed Mercury is in Cancer, and you can see that when it went retrograde, trying to draw the Cancer glyph, I'm struggling. I'm on the struggle bus as an artist, as you can see. So progressed Mercury went retrograde at this point in my life. And by this time, I was already experiencing success as an astrologer, as a teacher, doing a lot of Mercury ruled things. I was already writing horoscopes, doing my astrology videos. They were syndicated. And what I didn't tell you is that when Mercury was moving forward by progression, so you can see Mercury went retrograde at about 13. Before that happened, in Mercury would have both made a conjunction to my natal Mars, which is my chart ruler, and it would have made a trine to my natal Jupiter placement. And Jupiter rules my ninth house of publishing, Jupiter in divination and astrology. And when Mercury did this, it was technically in my third house of communication. So it was during these years before progressed Mercury went retrograde. So basically between 2009 through 2014, when progressed Mercury went retrograde, that it both made a conjunction to my Mars and it made a trine to my Jupiter. And that really helped to launch my career in communications completely. I started writing horoscopes for many well-known astrologers back then. I got connected with tarot.com, and I am still writing horoscopes for them today. They syndicated my video horoscopes from 2010 until 2017, and I had great success with that, with my weekly video horoscopes, and then other video horoscopes that they had syndicated for me. And I also had several podcasts. So it started out as internet radio before podcasts existed. I was one of the first astrologers in the world to do internet radio and have an astrology internet radio show. And I ended up doing that twice. And then the third time, I launched it as a podcast. And the podcast was very successful for a few years, but that podcast got launched during the progressed Mercury retrograde, which I'm going to talk about now. So you see lots of Mercury things happening, lots of busyness around family dynamics and in my family life with Mercury being there at the fourth house cusp as well. So now I'm going to erase all this and we're going to specifically talk about the Mercury retrograde journey, because this is what I want you guys to track in your chart. So from the moment that Mercury went retrograde, now we want to think about, well, what important things are happening that year? Well, for me, this would have been 2014, December 2nd, 2014, until probably early 2016, that progressed Mercury retrograding would have been a thing. And you feel the pull of the retrograde for sure. It is going to manifest. And what I will say absolutely happened is that by the end of 2016, it became very clear that tarot.com was going to stop syndicating my video horoscopes. And that basically ran its course. And they also, at some point there, they had hired me to be a full-time writer. I worked for tarot.com full-time, doing all sorts of astrology writing content, blogs and horoscopes and other things. And right around the time that Mercury went retrograde, so it was that year, it was between 2014 and early 2016, and I'm forgetting the exact date, they let me go from my full-time position. And this was a great full-time position because I had health benefits. I had a cushy job working from home, lots of leeway, and they kept me on as 1099 as a freelancer, but they stopped the video horoscopes, they stopped the full-time employment, and that was around, I believe it was 2015 into 2016 that the full-time employment stopped. And then 2017 is when the videos got canceled. So are you understanding the significance of Mercury turning retrograde and how some things kind of ended, some things kind of changed? There were very big changes with Mercury ruled matters for me. But that didn't mean failure, because in my birth chart, Mercury went retrograde, but now Mercury, once it adjusted in the retrograde, it was going to re-engage with some pivotal points in my horoscope. Specifically, Mercury was going to make a connection again to the fourth house cusp. And then Mercury was going to re-engage in that trine to Jupiter in my chart as Mercury went retrograde back into my third house. So again, if you can just follow this, now Mercury is retrograde, life is moving on, and it's back here at my fourth house cusp. Let's talk about what happened. Let me give you the dates here for this. So Mercury was in aspect to my fourth house cusp at August 5th, 2017. And Mercury went back to make the trine to my Jupiter. And that was exact June 24th of 2020. Now, I have to remind you about orbs, and I teach you this in the class, but I think it's a well-known fact for anybody who studies secondary progressions. We use a 2-degree orb in secondary progressions with connecting it to aspects in the chart. So those dates that I'm giving you, you have to realize that gives you a pretty big bandwidth of that 2-degree orb. For a planet like Mercury, it's actually going to last for a couple of years. And sure enough, here were the developments that are very consistent with all of this. I already told you the developments when Mercury first started going retrograde, right? Now, Mercury's retrograde exactly on my fourth house cusp of home, family, real estate, and it is making a trine to Jupiter, the ruler of my ninth house of legal matters. Well, what happened? Lo and behold, in March of 2019, I became a homeowner and I bought a house. I had a contract. That's Mercury on my fourth house cusp. I literally bought a home. How literal is that? And I had to leave my marital residence, and I was living there for 22 years plus, I think. So that was super, super significant for me. And that Mercury retrograde at this point in my chart, it was no longer negative or hard or difficult, because now it's re-engaging in that trine. It's applying once more to that trine with natal Jupiter. So that's a lot of luck, a lot of blessings in contracts, communications, writing. And so the exact trine for Mercury to Jupiter was June 24th, 2020. Now, at this time period also, between 2017 and 2020, this is when the Insightful Astrology podcast was launched. My videos were canceled with syndication, but this is when everybody told me to go back to YouTube. Everybody said, don't give up on your astrology videos just because tarot.com isn't paying to film them. Nobody cares about the fancy filming. They want you to do the astrology. And so I basically brought my YouTube channel back to life. I didn't touch it for years. It was created in 2008. Between 2008 and 2018, I think, almost 2018, I did not post any videos on my YouTube channel to build an audience. What my producer of my videos did was just put videos on there for me that I was filming for tarot.com. I didn't produce content intentionally for YouTube until about 2018. I believe it was about 2018 because the syndicated videos ended in 2017. So do you see here how I went back, progress Mercury retrograde, to broadcasting my message, in this case through my YouTube channel, Mercury trine Jupiter going into the third house, and that ended up being extremely successful for me. And I went back. Remember I told you I had 2 internet radio shows? when Mercury was moving direct. Well, now the podcast world is what was popular from 2017 on for sure. And I relaunched my radio show as the Insightful Astrology Podcast. And that was in 2017 to 2018, I believe. And that became one of the most successful podcasts. And I was really excited about this. It's unfortunately it's all gone now. I made a mistake and I didn't archive it and save the archive. So everything on iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio, it was about 100 plus episodes over several years, and they're gone now. But that's okay. You could always make more content. So I'm not going to cry about that. But I think me losing those and not keeping them might have been a reflection of my progressed Mercury mistake with it being retrograde and thinking that, oh, it's, it was okay. It didn't really matter. So now that those were two things. You know what, guys? Give me 1 second. My dog is crying. Hold, please. I just have to go get my dog. I think she's stuck on my bed. 1 minute. Sorry, guys. I heard my son's dog. She was on my bed chilling and she was crying, and I guess she was afraid to jump off, so I had to go pick her up. Anyway, so two things that I already talked to you about with Mercury retrograde. Now, here's a third. Bought the house, actually three things. Bought my house, went back to my YouTube channel, went back to broadcasting radio through a podcast. So that's three things. All of this happened between 2017 and 2020 as my progressed Mercury was first conjunct my fourth house cusp and also trine Jupiter. So, angles are everything in astrology. It makes things more powerful. I have to say, I have really been enjoying these extended aspects of Mercury to my Jupiter and now to my Mars, which is my chart ruler. So, the other thing that happened and is happening now, progressed Mercury made a conjunction to my natal Mars placement, and that was exact on February 27th of 2024. So this is the current progression that is active right now. Well, I'm well within orb of this. What's going on? So this is when I decided to really invest in my school and to really focus on leaving my legacy as an astrology teacher. So, progressed Mercury, trine Jupiter, wonderful for the teaching, right? And both of these aspects are in orb at the same time. So, hopefully, you can see that because if my progressed Mercury right now is 10 degrees, if it's 10 and a half degrees, it's basically separating from the trine to Jupiter while it's engaged to the conjunction with Mars. And the Insightful Astrology School is getting revamped, and I'm doing so much to it. And I turned it into a school now. It's been a school for 18 years, but it's become much more of a focus. I went back and I changed everything with it. So for the first 15 years of my school, I was teaching classes through freeconferencecall.com on the phone. And I would snail mail packets to my students. I would go to the post office and mail them their charts and handouts and everything. Well, Zoom changed all of that. COVID and Zoom changed all of that. And this was during the period that Mercury was retrograde, but trine my Jupiter and moving towards my Mars. So during 2021, when COVID happened, I finally went on Zoom and took my classes out of freeconferencecall.com and onto Zoom. And that really blew up my astrology school. Doing that was the best thing that I did. I stopped going to the post office. I started scanning everybody, all their charts. So again, Mercury retrograde, tweaking, fixing, going back to make something better, trine Jupiter, and then conjunct my Mars. And now I'm at the point, as of right now, where Mercury is conjunct my Mars. In the third house, Mars is my chart ruler. I'm about to relaunch my website. I'm about to relaunch fabulous things with my school. There is so much that I am doing that is changing in communications that is more aligned to my identity and to my authentic expression of who I want to be as an instructor, as an astrologer, as a communicator. And so you can see the Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars right now. You could even see it in the type of videos that I'm putting out on my channel now, right? I mean, if you follow my channel, you know I'm not doing as much of the horoscope content. I mean, maybe I'll go back to it if the mood strikes me, but at the moment, I'm really more interested in the teaching videos and other topics and doing horoscope videos on more specific topics as they are interesting to me that I think I could communicate them to you. So all of this is happening now in real time. And Mercury will stay retrograde until January 21st, 2039 in my chart. And that is when Mercury is going to turn direct very close to my Saturn placement. It'll be actually 4 degrees, 24 minutes. So it's not going to exactly make that conjunction, but it'll get close. And this is when Mercury will finally go direct, and it will stay direct for the rest of my life. And I'm actually going to have all over again over the years. Mercury will once again make a conjunction to my Mars and my fourth house and my Jupiter. It'll trine that again. I didn't write down the dates of when that'll happen moving direct. It'll be later on in life, but you can bet your bottom dollar that I'll have even better, even more success with the Mercury stuff once it's direct in motion and I get the pass again. This is one of the best progressions of my life. I have to say, having this Mercury extension for me has been wonderful. If I live long enough, I will make it into Mercury and Leo. You do have to live a long life to get to 4 signs. Most of us, we all will get to 3 signs in an average lifespan because remember, you have to allow for the many years that Mercury will go retrograde and then station direct, or if your Mercury was retrograde at birth, for however long it's going to be retrograde before it turns direct. But if you're going to live 90 plus years, it'll go through 4 signs in your lifetime. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I really hope that you guys found this interesting, relevant, interesting. I don't believe there's anything out there on YouTube about this with secondary progressions, particularly with your secondary progressed Mercury and how it is guaranteed to change direction in your life. So this real life astrology example using my chart hopefully inspired you to dig into this for yourself. If you don't know how to do it, don't you worry. My class will teach you. You will learn how to do this in the secondary progressions class. And if you are not a student of astrology, but you want to understand this information, when you hire your astrologer for a consultation, make sure you ask for it specifically because it's not something that people will routinely tell you unless it is happening in the next year or so of your life. Okay. But it is super interesting to look back on if it already happened and try to connect those dots in your life to see, well, what was going on? How did this reflect in my world? And make sure you document it in your astrology journal, my astrology students out there. Okay. So, guys, that's it for now. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care. Bye.